Imagine being called by name across an entire ocean. Not by a voice you know, by a sound shaped just for you. A sound no other whale on Earth uses the same way. It travels through dark water for miles. It bends around islands and reefs. And somewhere in the cold blue, another whale hears it and answers. Not what they think Goldilocks eyes and wondered what they feel. Not whether they are, sing, but whether deep beneath us they actually call each other by name. The truth is, the more we listen, the harder that question becomes to dismiss. Because a small group of scientists working with hydrophones and patients kept noticing something strange. Certain whales repeated the same unique sound again and again throughout their entire lives. Other whales far away learned that sound and used it back. That is not random noise. That looks a lot like a name. To understand why this matters, you have to understand what a name really is. A name is not just a sound. A name is a label two minds agree on. It means you exist as a separate self in someone else's mind. It means another being can think about you when you are not there. For a long time, we believed only humans did that. Then we met the bottlenose dolphin. In the 1960s, researchers studying captive dolphins kept hearing the same whistle repeated by the same individual. They called it a signature whistle. Each dolphin, it turned out, invents its own whistle in its first year of life, like a child choosing the syllables of its own identity. That whistle then becomes its calling card for the rest of its life. When dolphins meet at sea, they often exchange signature whistles the way strangers exchange greetings. When a calf gets separated from its mother, the mother whistles its signature and the calf answers back. That is not instinct. That is calling someone by name. Researcher Vincent Janik later proved something even more astonishing. He played a dolphin signature whistle back to it to an underwater speaker. The dolphin responded as if hearing its own name spoken aloud. It turned, it listened, it called back. And here is the part that breaks the old story about animal minds. Other dolphins in the group could copy that whistle too. They could imitate the unique sound of a specific friend. In other words, they could say someone else's name. To do that, an animal must hold an idea in mind of a particular individual and label that individual with a sound. That is, by any honest definition, naming. If dolphins can do it, the obvious question becomes simple. What about their enormous, deeper diving cousins? What about whales? And the answer, slowly emerging from years of recordings, is yes. In different oceans, different species seem to do it in different ways. Sperm whales were the first to give us a clue. Sperm whales do not sing. They click. Their clicks are organized into short patterns called codas, like little rhythmic phrases. Researchers like Shane Giroux have spent years following sperm whale families in the Caribbean. He noticed that each family had its own coda dialect, like a regional accent. But within each family, individuals seemed to have their own personal coda too. A specific clicking pattern that stuck to one whale like a tag. Other whales used that pattern when they were near that whale. The same individual, the same pattern, year after year. That is starting to sound very much like a name spoken in clicks. Now picture the scene. A sperm whale dives a mile straight down into total darkness. There is no light, no landmarks, no surface. There is only sound. In that black silence, a click pattern reaches her through the water, and she knows exactly who is calling. Then come the orcas. Killer whales live in pods that stay together for generations. A daughter often spends her entire life with her mother, her grandmother, her brothers. Each pod has its own dialect of calls, almost like a family language. Inside that dialect, scientists have found calls that seem tied to specific individuals. When one orca uses that call, another specific orca tends to answer. In some recordings, mothers and calves trade these calls back and forth for hours. It looks like a long, gentle conversation across the water. And if you have ever called your child's name in a crowded park, you already know what that sounds like. Now let me pause here for a moment because I want to ask you something. If you have ever owned a dog or cat that responded to its name, you have seen the spark on the other side. The look of recognition, the turn of the head, the sudden intention. I would love to know in the comments, what is the name you gave your animal, and how did you choose it? Tell me the story behind the name. I read these, and they always make me smile. Now, back to the deep. Humpback whales add another twist to all of this. Humpbacks are famous for their songs, those long, haunting melodies that males sing in the breeding season. For decades, we thought the songs were mostly about mating. But humpbacks also make shorter, simpler calls outside of song. Some researchers believe certain calls function as social labels within their loose groups. If that holds up, it would mean a third major whale lineage has independently invented something like names. 3 different species in 3 different oceans arriving at the same idea. That kind of repeated invention is what scientists call convergent evolution. Is what happens when an idea is so useful that nature keeps reinventing it. Wings evolved separately in birds, bats, and insects because flight is just that good. Eyes evolved separately many times because seeing is just that valuable. And now, it looks like naming each other might be in that same category. A tool so powerful that minds in the sea and minds on land both reached for it. Think about what naming actually unlocks. It lets you talk about someone who is not there. It lets you remember a friend you have not seen in years. It lets a mother call a specific child out of a crowd. It lets a hunter coordinate with a specific partner across distance. It is the foundation of gossip, of memory, of culture. And whales have culture. We know they pass songs from one generation to the next. We know different pods hunt with different techniques learned from elders. We know they mourn their dead, sometimes carrying a lost calf for days. A creature that mourns is a creature that remembers individuals. And a creature that remembers individuals has every reason to give them names. There is one more detail that haunts me. Sound travels much farther in water than in air. A low-frequency whale call can, in theory, travel across an entire ocean basin. Before ships filled the seas with engine noise, whales may have been able to call each other from hundreds of miles away. Imagine that for a second. A name, spoken in the deep, reaching a friend half an ocean away. A friend who hears it, recognizes it, and answers back through the dark. That is a kind of intimacy our species has never known. We need phones and satellites to do what whales may have done with their own bodies for millions of years. And then we arrived. Our cargo ships, our sonar, our drilling, our engines. The ocean today is louder than it has ever been in the history of whales. Scientists studying right whales have shown that ship noise raises their stress hormones. Other studies suggest whales have to call louder or shorter or simply stop calling at all. If whales really do use names, then we may be drowning out the sound of one whale calling another by name. That is a quiet tragedy hidden under the waves. But it is also a reason for hope. Because if we know they are listening, we can choose to be quieter. Slower ships, smarter shipping lanes, protected zones of silence. Small changes from us could mean whole conversations restored to them. And maybe that is the deepest lesson here. For most of human history, we assumed we were the only species that truly knew each other as individuals. The only ones who could say, that one, my friend, by name. The ocean is gently, patiently proving us wrong. Whales were probably calling each other long before we invented the word for it. They were doing it in the Ice Age. They were doing it when the first humans learned to speak. They are doing it right now, in waters you will never see. A click in the dark. A whistle across a reef. A long, low call sliding through cold blue light. And somewhere out there another mind hearing that call. And knowing exactly who it is. Maybe the right question is not whether whales have names. Maybe the right question is whether we have the humility to admit they always did. If this made you see the ocean a little differently, a like on this video really does help more people find it. If you want more stories about how animals actually think and feel, consider subscribing so you do not miss the next one. And in the comments, tell me this. If whales really do call each other by name, what do you think they would call us? I have my own theory, but I want to hear yours first. In the next video, we are going deeper into another quiet mystery of the animal mind. Why elephants seem to recognize the bones of their dead, and what that might mean about how they remember love. Until then, keep listening to the world a little more closely. The animals have been talking the whole time.